This podcast is an initiative of the Australian Intercollegiate Meat Judging Association to showcase the career paths within the meat processing industry. ICMJ is a not-for-profit association which aims to provide opportunities for students to learn, building the pool of intelligent young meat industry representatives into the future. ICMJ does this through a series of events across Australia and overseas. For more information, head to the website icmj.com.au. My guest today is Dr Tom Carr, an American meat scientist with a passion for educating the next generation. Dr Carr's career has spanned decades and countries. He's now retired, getting back to his roots on the family ranch in Kansas. But that hasn't meant saying goodbye to meat judging forever. I'm Amy McCosker, and I started my conversation with Dr Carr by asking him about where it all began.
My brother and I've got a younger brother 2 years younger than I, and we were raised on the ranch in a 4-room house. We did have running water in the house, but we had an outdoor toilet, and that's where we were raised. And my grandfather and dad had 150 head commercial cow herd, Herefords primarily, and we farmed approximately 500 acres of wheat and sorghum for feeding and for cash money also. But in growing up in United States, there are 2 youth programs that are primarily for rural kids, and one is 4-H, the other is FFA, and we were members in both of those, but the youth group 4-H had tremendous impact on my life. And in that particular organization, my brother and I started an Angus cow herd, and that helped us take care of our college expenses as we were going through Kansas State University. But we had a great life on the ranch and learned lots of stuff. Did a lot of judging. We had livestock judging, land judging, range judging. In our particular county, we did not have meats judging. And I really didn't know anything like that existed until I got to Kansas State as an undergraduate.
It sounds like you had a wonderful upbringing on your ranch, on your family ranch, and that you have quite a connection to it within your family. What was your plan when you finished school? Like, was the plan for you and your brother to both stay on the ranch?
Well, no, we knew that couldn't happen because we weren't large enough. And I did, when I left to go to K-State and get my bachelor's degree in animal science, my plan was, in fact, to come back to the ranch and be in a partnership with my dad. Well, the problem was Granddad had not retired at this point in time. And so as I was nearing graduation, Dad said, "Hey, you better think about getting a job for a few years after you graduate, because there's just not room for you economically on the ranch at this point in time." And so that did occur, and I got my bachelor's degree in about 1968, 69, and I had to make that decision. All right, what am I going to do here? To make a long story short here, yes, my plan was to come back to the ranch.
As you sort of went through that education process and higher education and higher, when did you sort of fall in love with meat science? And when did you know that it was where your career was going to stay?
Well, it really happened because I had not had any kind of initiation into it at all in 4-H or FFA. Started when, I guess it must have been probably my freshman year in introductory animal science. I all of a sudden had an opportunity, at their meat lab to see carcasses and retail cuts and demonstrations of breaking down carcasses and so forth into wholesale subprimals. And thought that's kind of interesting. And so I took another meat science course my sophomore year. And then Kansas State got a new meat scientist, Dr. Dell Allen, and he was going to start coaching the meat judging team. And so he asked me, would you be interested in coming out for the meat judging team? And I happened to be in an ag fraternity at that point in time, and several guys in the house were already on the meat judging team or had been on the meat judging team, and they encouraged me to do it. So I did, and that was in 1967. And I really, really enjoyed that experience. And so the meat science classes, but probably more importantly, the meat judging experience really whet my appetite as far as meat science is concerned and as far as teaching is concerned. I've finished up my master's degree, and Dad said, the situation hasn't changed on the ranch yet. Granddad hasn't retired. And so I had the opportunity to pursue a PhD at University of Missouri, at Iowa State, and also at Oklahoma State University. And Oklahoma State had a half-time instructorship with one of the responsibilities, the primary responsibility, that of coaching their meat judging team. And that really intrigued me. And I went down and interviewed for the position, and they offered it to me. And so I then became a halftime teacher at Oklahoma State University as I was working on my PhD and coaching the meats team, which was just a fantastic experience. And it solidified in my mind that this is what I want to do as a career, as far as teaching at a land-grant institution, be involved in meat science, and hopefully having the opportunity to coach a meat judging team.
Now, your career has been tremendously influential in the US, I suppose, sphere, in the whole industry and the meat science community in the US. And if that wasn't enough, you've also had a huge impact on the Australian industry as well. So how did that begin, your connection with Australia?
Well, really, it began and with meeting a young man from Australia named Jason Strong. And Jason was a recipient of an Angus livestock judging scholarship, and I'm not sure if that was the National Association, how that worked out, but there were at that point in time, two scholarships were given. The winner of one went to the University of Illinois, and the second scholarship winner, I don't know which order they went to Michigan State University. And so Jason was a winner of one of those scholarships, and so he comes to the University of Illinois, and I hope I've got the dates right on this, but in the fall of 1992. And so he was on the livestock judging team, but he also sat in on my meat science class that I was teaching that fall semester. He kind of enjoyed that and actually went with me on a judging trip out to the Eastern with the meat judging team in 92. And lo and behold, he made the decision to come back in 1993 and take some more meat science classes. And he traveled with me the whole fall as far as the meats team was concerned, and actually was able to judge in some of the contests and did quite well. And so got to know Jason extremely well, and I was just so impressed with his intelligence, his maturity, and he was really getting into what we were doing here in the States as far as the competition is concerned. And the contest says, boy, he says, I hope we can start something like this in Australia. And so at almost that same time, Roy McDonald, who was very influential in the USDA grading system, and John Carter had started a great relationship. John was very much interested in I wouldn't say he was interested in the quality aspects of our grading system and felt the need for that to be emphasized a little bit more in Australia. And so he and Roy were picking each other's brains and visiting back and forth. And John also was aware of the meat judging contests that were going over in the United States. And I guess, and you probably got more information on that historical development than I do, but between John and Roy and Jason, all of a sudden we see kind of the formation of a judging activities at some of the schools in Australia. And so just a real neat marriage of people and ideas.
You're listening to the ICMJ podcast, Chiller Room Secrets, the stories behind the Australian meat industry's quest for perfection. I'm Amy McCosker, and my guest today is Dr. Tom Carr. For more information on ICMJ and its activities, head to the website icmj.com.au.
In 1995, the New South Wales Meat Industry Authority asked my wife and I to come over and help conduct a workshop for the teachers in Australia, in Yanco, New South Wales. And what a unbelievable experience for us. And we were had great chaperones, and Andrew McCarran, who's with the authority at that time, and Bernard Monroe, and they took us around New South Wales primarily for a week before we actually started the workshop. And we just basically fell in love with them as well as the people there. And that's when I was able to introduce a little bit more of what we did as far as meat judging was concerned in the United States. And of course, Jason's already had done the primary groundwork and the preaching concerning that, and had the opportunity to go back in 2006 to help with a workshop at University of England in Armidale, and also be involved in the contest that year on July the 1st. And then at the end of that session, the Coaches Association said, "Hey, would you be interested in bringing a team over in 2007? Well, I about fell out of my chair, and I said, yes, if we can get the money together, I would love to do that. And so starting in 2007, University of Illinois came over for the first time for a USA team to be represented at the national contest in Australia, and that's been ongoing ever since, and just been absolutely fantastic. So it's been a great relationship, and the big thing is once the judging teams from Australia started coming over, Jason was an integral part of that, coached many of the earlier teams, and because he knew me and knew where we worked out and practiced in the early years, the team would fly into Chicago, and then would come and work out at that point in time, it was an IBP plant. Now it's a Tyson's plant in Illinois, and at Jocelyn, Illinois, and practice grading there. And then they would come down to the University of Illinois. We'd have some classes and practice there. And my wife and I would have the team over in the evening for dinner. And so that started a tradition that is, amazingly enough, still ongoing. And we have, through this, had the opportunity to meet so many wonderful people, establish, some great relationships, and the coaches bringing them over, and of course those have rotated and changed, but we have developed great relationships with, and I hate to even mention names, but like Jason and Allison, and Brad and Haley Robinson, and Becky, Sarah, Michael, Demi, Emmy, Tim, Sarah, Nick, and Melanie here in the last year. So and I've left out many, but it's just been a wonderful experience for us, for my wife and I. And I'd be really remiss in this whole thing if I didn't just mention the relationship that we have with John Carter. And when I came over the first time in 1995, John was able, and I think he had some kind of a medical situation. I don't remember, but I wasn't able to meet John and never met John. We communicated an awful lot with him before 2006. But John and Jason, and I know there's others there in Australia that have had such an impact, but they were the two, I'd say, instigators of the intercollegiate judging program in Australia.
Now, you've seen the Australian movement and industry grow from the very, very beginning. You were there sort of at that genesis of, even just the idea that a meat judging movement should occur in Australia. And so in that sense, I suppose the development of the system has been very thought out, as opposed to, I think, listening to your stories, about those organisations in the States that have been running for a long, long time, and I suppose have developed over time, as opposed to being set up from the beginning with an idea. What do you think are some of the key things that the Australian meat judging movement have taken from the US? Do you see some sort of important things that we do that we've taken directly from your playbook?
Well, I would say that in many ways the contest, the national contest, at least certain parts of it are kind of modeled after what we do here in the United States. The judging beef carcasses and primals and subprimals, and one of the neat things that do in Australia that we don't do in the United States, at least intercollegiate contests, is actually you have some subprimal and retail cut identification in your current contest, and we have retail meat identification in our 4-H contest, but we don't at the collegiate level, and so that's been an interesting thing that's gone on, and you have pricing classes, and some unique things that you have taken an initial thought, I think, from the U.S. contest, and then have forged it into a mental activity that is more appropriate for Australia. And I think that has just been fantastic. And, when our team, when we knew that we were coming over in 2007, I was a little, more than a little nervous, because we had to learn, several new things. And I had just started the team basically in February of that year, and so they didn't know much from the U.S. side, much less trying to figure out what to do in Australia. But we learned a lot in a short period of time. But there are some things obviously that Australia is doing that's been modeled from what we've done, in the U.S., and even our contests continue to evolve. But it's been, a very positive thing from that standpoint.
And this might be a little bit of a cheeky question, because there's no denying that the Australian system is, much younger than what's happening in the US. But do you think that, this relationship of teams going back and forward, and coaches, coming as well, and that industry relationship, do you think that the US has learnt anything from Australia?
Oh, very definitely. Probably the greatest thing that's happened for us has been the opportunity to come over and compete in the national contest. It's just not the competition; it's what we learn in the seminar. Now, our competitions, our national contests, are strictly that, a contest. Well, here in Australia, you have a couple of days of tremendous learning seminars on the industry. It involves much on the live side as well as the meat side. The kids get to meet the key players in the meat industry in Australia, and that is really impressive. And now, because we've been able to send a team over, we'll have 5, 6, 7 kids and their coach experience that, and so there's tremendous amount of learning going on. But as far as the U.S. learning from Australia, and we don't necessarily do everything the same. There's a lot of things that we do, but look at things a little bit differently, and it's a tremendous learning experience. When my kids came back, it was a once in a lifetime experience, and we actually the kids put together a series of pictures, a slide program, and we presented a program. The department head wanted us to present a program to the undergraduates and faculty and that type of thing, just to expound on what we experienced, what we learned, and it was amazing. And parents came and it was just, like I said, a once in a lifetime experience, and it'll impact my 6 kids, the rest of their lives. So, yeah, we've learned an awful lot, and it's due to the exposure to Australia, the country, the people, and the industry.
We've discussed, of course, the impact that that the relationship between the US and Australia in terms of meat judging competitions has had on, individual personal relationships. Also, of course, the careers of those people that have travelled. But what I'm interested in, Dr. Carr, is from your point of view, in your opinion, do you think that these relationships and this work that you and many people have been doing over the years has had any impact on the trade for meat but internationally between the US and Australia? Obviously, huge competitors in the international meat market. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there's been any impact on trade?
I'm sure there has been, and with Cargill being in Australia, and other ag companies going both directions, from Australia to here and here to Australia, there's no question there has been a great exchange of knowledge and methodology, both on the live side, and I'm primarily talking cattle here, beef cattle, through carcass and retail. And obviously, you do retailing is a little different deal in Australia than it is in the United States, since our majority of our cattle are fed grain and harvested that way, where in Australia, a lot of the fed cattle, at least has been, go to export, and there's more grass-fed beef that are consumed domestically, considerably more than what there is in the United States at this point in time. And so there's some differences in that, but I'm sure that there's been a lot of ideas gleaned, and your tracking system for your meat and through the beef aspect of it. We still have a ways to go in this country to be able to properly track all of our meat from producer to consumer and that type of thing. And I think Australia is quite a ways ahead of us in that area. one of the things that's been amazing to me and is the increase that we've had in faculty and researchers collaborating with researchers in Australia, whether it be in a company situation or a university situation. And I know for a fact that Texas Tech University has done collaborative work with a couple of universities, and also down in New Zealand. And we've had students that have done study abroad programs, obviously, in Australia and vice versa. All that is very, very, very positive. And and I think one of the things that the Australian teams have seen here is I think they always are marveled at the number of universities that we have that have meat science programs, and that each university has some sort of a meat science laboratory where they can conduct research, actually harvest animals right there, and teach a variety of meat science courses, which is a little bit different than Australia, but I think, there's inroads being made in Australia in that area. And so that's been another thing that has, I think, been very revealing to our Australian contacts and relationships that we've made.
Now, I believe you've been working for almost 4 decades now in this field. Your whole career has been dedicated to meat science and to these competitions in Australia and the US, of course. So, almost 40 years on, where are you today? I mean, have you made it back to the ranch?
Yes, I have. I retired from the University of Illinois in August of 2010, and that was after being a faculty member there in the Department of Animal Science for 36 years. And my wife and I decided that at that point in time, and still, our 3 children are scattered all over the United States. Currently, they're in Florida, Georgia, and Indiana, and we made the decision not to try to chase them, but that we would move back to the ranch, not actually living on the ranch, but to the ranch. And really, we own, like I mentioned before, my brother and I still own this ranch, and it's only 1,000 acres now. But we had a major problem with a eastern cedar tree that is almost like a weed. It is native to the U.S., but it has just become a major nuisance, and so we made it our goal to try to eradicate those and turn the ranch the way it looked to us in the early 1950s. And so we have spent basically 9 years in eradicating these eastern cedars and improving the range capacity of our pastures, and also improving the wild game habitat. And we're basically just about at the end of that. We've about got it completed. It's been very costly, and it's kept us very busy, which has probably been a very good thing. But to answer your question, that's a long story of saying, yes, we have retired, and yes, we have landed at the ranch.
But I've heard around the ranges that you haven't given up altogether on being involved in this international community that is meat judging.
Well, I haven't. We actually, when we moved back, our county agent said, would you possibly be interested in starting a 4-H meat judging team? And I said, well, I would consider that. And so, I guess it's been probably, we've been at it, I guess, for about 7 years. And we started a 4-H meat judging program here in Barber County, and it's live and well, and has been very enjoyable. It's a little different coaching 10 to 14-year-olds than it is 19 to 24-year-olds. But we're learning.
This podcast is an initiative of the Australian Intercollegiate Meat Judging Association. ICMJ is a not-for-profit association which aims to provide an opportunity for students to learn and to build the pool of intelligent young meat industry representatives. For more information, check out the website icmj.com.au.